In the 10 years that Baha'u'llah was residing in Baghdad, he had transformed the hearts of the inhabitants of that city. When he had first arrived, the local Babis were too scared to even outwardly proclaim their faith. By the time Baha'u'llah was departing that city, tears were flowing from the eyes of all those that gathered round him. Baha'u'llah uttered words of comfort to the disconsolate who besought him on every side. Already the shadow of that great oncoming event had fallen upon the colony of exiles, who awaited expectantly its consummation. As the year 80 steadily and inexorably approached, he who had become the real leader of that community increasingly experienced and progressively communicated to his future followers the unrushing influences of its informing force. The festive, the soul-entrancing odes which he revealed almost every day, the tablets replete with hints which streamed from his pen, the allusions which, in private converse and public discourse, he made to the approaching hour, the exaltation which in moments of joy and sadness alike flooded his soul, the ecstasy which filled his lovers, already enraptured by the multiplying evidences of his rising greatness and glory, the perceptible change noted in his demeanor, and finally, his adoption of the Taj, a tall felt headdress, on the day of his departure from his most holy house, all proclaimed unmistakably his imminent assumption of the prophetic office and of his open leadership of the community of the Bab's followers.
Many a night would Mirza Agajan gather them together in his room, close the door, light numerous hemp-haunted candles, and chant aloud to them the newly revealed odes and tablets in his possession, wholly oblivious of this contingent world, completely immersed in the realms of the spirit, forgetful of the necessity of food, sleep, or drink. They would suddenly discover that the night had become day and that the sun was approaching its zenith.
When the Tigris River reached flood stage on the 22nd of April, 1863, 31 days after Nowruz, Baha'u'llah, accompanied by his sons and amanuenses, crossed over to the Garden of Ridvan, set up their tents, and began to observe the divine springtime, that holiest of human celebrations, when a new prophet of God has come. Of the exact circumstances attending that epoch-making declaration, we alas are but scantily informed. The words Baha'u'llah actually uttered on that occasion, the manner of his declaration, the reaction it produced, its impact on Mirza Yahya, the identity of those who were privileged to hear him, are shrouded in an obscurity which future historians will find it difficult to penetrate. The fragmentary description left to posterity by his chronicler, Nabil, is one of the very few authentic records we possess of the memorable days he spent in that garden.
Every day, ere the hour of dawn, the gardeners would pick the roses which lined the 4 avenues of the garden, and would pile them in the centre of the floor of his blessed tent. So great would be the heap that when his companions gathered to drink their morning tea in his presence, they would be unable to see each other across it. All these roses Baha'u'llah would, with his own hands, entrust to those whom he dismissed from his presence every morning to be delivered, on his behalf, to his Arab and Persian friends in the city.
When the Tigris receded sufficiently, Baha'u'llah's family and many other followers crossed the river to join him in the Garden of Ridvan. Reunited on the island, though, the family still feared and grieved because they had no idea what would happen next. Exiled, Baha'u'llah, his family, and his followers would soon embark on their forced exile, a perilous 4-month journey, which would take them to a foreign land with an alien language and culture. Impoverished, reviled by officials, and made homeless by their decree, they had no idea what tests, trials, and tortures the future there might hold. The capital of the Ottoman Empire, Constantinople, awaited them, infamous for its Turkish prisons and its harsh, brutal treatment of his captives. Regardless of the dangers ahead, Bahala remained joyous.
One night, the 9th night of the waxing moon, I happened to be one of those who watched beside his blessed tent. As the hour of midnight approached, I saw him issue from his tent, pass by the places where some of his companions were sleeping, and begin to pace up and down the moonlight, flowered bordered avenues of the garden. So loud was the singing of the nightingales on every side that only those who were near him could hear distinctly his voice. He continued to walk until, pausing in the midst of one of these avenues, he observed, "Consider these nightingales. So great is their love for those roses, that sleepless from dusk till dawn, they warble their melodies and commune with burning passion with the object of their adoration. How, then, can those who claim to be afire with the rose-like beauty of the beloved choose to sleep?" For 3 successive nights I watched and circled round his blessed tent. Every time I passed by the couch whereon he lay, I would find him wakeful, and every day from morn till eventide I would see him ceaselessly engaged in conversing with the stream of visitors who kept flowing in from Baghdad. Not once could I discover in the words he spoke any trace of dissimulation.
The departure of Bahala from the Garden of Ridvan at noon on May 3rd, 1863, witnessed scenes of tumultuous enthusiasm, no less spectacular and even more touching than those which greeted him when leaving his most great house in Baghdad. Believers and unbelievers alike sobbed and lamented. The chiefs and notables who had congregated were struck with wonder. Emotions were stirred to such depths as no tongue can describe, nor could any observer escape their contagion. Mounted on his steed, a red-roan stallion of the finest breed, the best his lovers could purchase for him, and leaving behind him a bowing multitude of fervent admirers, he rode forth on the first stage of a journey that was to carry him to the city of Constantinople.